We will now straight away move to recurring entries in SAP Financials. Three things are very important. Recurring entry is a fixed amount accounting entry which occurs again and again, mostly each month, maybe at the end of each month or at the first day of the beginning of a new month. Amount must be fixed. Amount cannot change. Otherwise, the batch input will go haywire. You cannot configure the system. It will post automatically through a batch input and will never post manually. It will always post with the creation of a reference document, and it will post periodically. You will decide the period, generally per month. Examples: rent, loan, lease, and interest on bonds or write-offs against intangible assets. We will do a rent payment as our example, and we will do a recurring entry. Let us do the rent payment recurring entry through a reference document creation. Now, as the rent becomes due, there is an outstanding in the rent expense account, and the rent payable account, it sits with a credit of 3,500, while the rent expense account sits with a debit of 3,500. When we pay this rent, the payable is adjusted, becomes 0, and the bank account sits now with an outgoing of 3,500. So we actually paid this rent from the bank using 3,500. So the net impact is obviously expense debit and bank account credit. So these are the journal entries that happen each time we do the recurring entry. So let's do the settings, and let's now see how we do SAP recurring entries at the end of each month, also known as period accounting, because you do it at the end of each month. And yeah, so let's do this one. Let's create our two ledger accounts, rent expense and rent payable. And then let's do the configuration and do these entries through a batch input. So each time you do the recurring entry, you only do the batch input. That's how the whole thing works. So we will go back into the system, and we will go to FS00 and create a couple of ledger accounts. We would say here that our rent expense would be a ledger account. So I'm going to create a new. I'm going to copy purchase. I'm sorry, I chose the wrong option. I'm going to copy purchase, and I'm going to call it 1080 and hit enter. And I'm going to create an account called rent expense account. And nothing would change in this one. It's a simple expense account, so the control data will remain what it is, with the sort key being posting date, and open item management obviously cannot be ticked here. In the third tab, it's just an expense account, so I'll come back to the first tab and save this one. Rent expense account is created. In liabilities, I will probably copy loan and create a liability account called 4070, and I'm going to call it rent payable account. Now this would be again clearing account type, because as we keep paying the rent, this account keeps becoming green, and each time it's due it becomes red. So obviously we will maintain it under open item management. So I will tick the option open item management, and the field status group used would be clearing account. So I guess now it's pretty clear when we use open item management for liabilities or asset accounts. Clearing account, open item is ticked, line item display is ticked, post sort key is posting date, and it is a rent payable account. So I'm going to click on the save button. Both my accounts have been created, rent expense and rent payable. Now I'm going to create special document types and document numbers for doing my recurring entries. So I will now do /n OBA7. And I'm going to create a recurring entry document called X1. You can see these two are already there. I'm going to delete them, and I'm going to save what I deleted, and I'm going to create my own. So I'm going to go to new entries. I'm going to create X1, which would be my recurring entry document. I will assign it a number range 91. You remember we had already created X1 and X2 with 91 and 92. when we were doing our number ranges in the first video lecture. This is how we use it. We did this during enterprise structure and GL account configuration. This is how we use it. So this is why we had created X1 and X2. Recurring entry document. It's a recurring entry document. Yes. Number range is 91. Although it will be assigned 91, but the batch input postings will happen through 92. You will see that. Special usage, yes, batch input only. So don't forget to click on the option batch input only. Allow it for all account types. And that's it. Save this one. Data was saved. Go back, give it a name, call it recurring entry MR88. Call it recurring entry MR88. And save it. Now we will define the recurring entry document, the way it's going to behave, and what would be the periodicity of our X1. So we will do that in the T code FD01. So /n FD01, hit enter. And oh, I'm so sorry. /n FBD1. So FBD1 without /n, of course, now. Now enter the recurring entry. So I'm going to describe everything about my recurring entry document here. There are two ways to define the periodicity and the dates the recurring entry run is to execute. Either you do it through a schedule, or you do it through a run date, or you say what is the interval in months, and what is the first run date and what is the last run date. So we will use the first run date and the last run date. We will use the run date. If you do these two, then you do not need run date and run schedule. Either you use these two and the interval, either you use the first three together, or you use the next two together. We will use the first three together. So I'm going to put my company code here. It's already there. My first run date would be the last calendar date of the first month of my fiscal. So I'm going to choose that. My last run date would be the last calendar date of the last date of my fiscal. So I'm going to put here. I'm going to run this every month for rent payment. Document type would be obviously X1. If you see in the bubble here, then X1 is recurring entry document for MR88. I'm going to call it office rent due each time it posts. I'm paying my office rent. The posting key that I will use will be 40. And the account that would be debited using this posting key 40 would be the rent expense account. So I'm going to say rent expense account. We'll need to think about this translation date a bit. So let me come back and see what we need to do with the translation date here. So we are going to go back into the system, and the translation rate obviously is only to be used when the currency is not Aussie and you have to translate each month. So I'm going to delete this. You can choose not to put anything here. We are done. I'm going to hit enter. First run date is in the past. That's fine. I'm going to hit enter again. Document type is type X1 is only defined for batch input. Fine. I'm going to hit enter again, and it's going to ask me the amount of rent that I need to pay each month. So I'm going to put here 3,500, and the text that I'm going to put here is office rent due. And I'm going to put a posting key here for 50, and I'm going to credit the rent payable account. So each time the rent is due, payable would be credited, expense would be debited. So my rent payable account is sitting here. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to put here a star and I'm going to put in the text field a plus. I guess that's all we need to do here, and hit enter. So it picks up the amount and it picks up the text, and I'm going to post this transaction. So document 92 was stored in the company code MR88. So you can see that posting will happen through 92, but the reference document that would be created will have the range 91. Document 92 was stored. So I've just stored this entry. I've not posted anything. X1 will be assigned 91, but the batch input posting will happen through 92. So don't worry about that. We will only see 92 happening when we run the ledger report. But then X1 has a range which is 91. So we have kept these two separate from each other because because there would be many different types of recurring documents that you will create. While all the entries will happen through 92, the different types of recurring documents will have different number ranges. So we have just differentiated the number range between the document type and the number range used to post that document. They will all post using 92. So let's do the transactions now. Our document has been stored. As you can see, we have basically taken care of this journal entry. This one. As the rent becomes due, expense is debited and payable is credited. So we have basically taken care of this journal entry. Because 40 in 50, yeah, is the debit and the credit entry. So basically we have taken care of the first journal entry. As we pay the rent, the next journal entry will be taken care of. So let's get back into the system and do some transactions. We will go to easy access, and in accounting we will go to financial accounting, we will go to general ledger, we will go to periodic processing, and we will go to recurring entries, and we will choose the option F.15 for lists. So let's make the rent due first. Let's post that journal entry which makes the rent due. For that we put the company code here, which is MR88. We do not put anything for the document number. We just put our FY here, which is 2013. Yeah, and we just put these two and we execute. Once we do that, you can see the ledger entry for this, which says that 1080 has been debited and 4070 has been credited, has happened. Now this ledger entry makes the rent due. Unless the rent is due, you cannot pay the rent. So we have run that. Now we will do F.14. So I'm going to go back into the system, go back again and double click on F.14 to execute this. We again put the company code, and we put a fiscal year here, which is 2013. Now settlement period becomes important. Obviously the settlement period becomes the first date of run till the last date of run I will explain to you how it will work, don't worry. Uh, yeah, so we only put 4 things: company code, fiscal year, and the settlement period. And we execute this one. It says session SAP F120 was created. Still no posting has happened yet. I have to post this session SAP F120 through a batch input. So I'm going to open a new session and I'm going to do SM35, and I can see here SAP F120. I have to process this one, display errors only and process it. And the processing of batch input is now complete. So I'm going to exit my batch input and I'm going to go back into the system and we are going to come back again. So now that we have run the batch input session and we have exited from the batch input session, we are back on easy access. I'm sorry. So I'm going to close all my sessions and we are back on easy access. So I'm just going to run my FBL3N, which is my ledger line item report, and I'm only going to select my rent expense and rent payable accounts. So I'm going to select rent expense, which is this one, and I'm going to select my rent payable account, which is this one, rent payable account, this one. I'm going to execute this one. I'm going to choose all items and I'm going to execute this one. So rent expense sits with a debit and payable sits with document type X1 with a credit. As the payment happens, the clearing will happen through 92 document type. While X1 sits with 91, the clearing and the payment should happen by 92. So basically the first journal entry has now been taken care of each time you run the batch input. So each time you run the batch input, the first journal entry is taken care of. What's the first journal entry? Sorry, this is the first journal entry. The rent now becomes due. Rent expense debit, payable credit. And you can see that. Rent expense debit, payable credit. If I double click on this 3500 and take you to document overview, then you will see rent expense debit, payable credit is the general ledger view. If I go to general ledger view, then expense debit, payable credit. Now I'm going to go back again and refresh this report. So I'll keep this report open and I will now pay my rent. And as usual, when we pay and the clearing also needs to happen simultaneously, then we use F-07, the way we did in terms of paying the OD and the interest together, so that both OD and the interest gets cleared up. So I'm going to open a new session, and in accounting I'm going to choose now general ledger outgoing payment. You will see here general ledger document entry F-07 outgoing payments. Obviously now dates are important here. So you can see if I go back into my ledger line item, then the document date is the 31st of July. So let's say we cleared this on the 1st of August 2013. So we can use that, and we can put here the 1st of August 2013. And we can use here the 1st of August 2013. We can put here a document header text. We can put here clearing text. We can choose here bank account. Money will go out from our bank account. 3,500 is what we are going to pay. I'll put an amount here because I know the amount. I know my amount, my rent is fixed every month, so I don't need to put one now. I'm paying it on the 1st of August, so I'm going to put here 2013. This is bank data text. I have to clear my rent payable account, so obviously I'm going to choose my rent payable account, which is a liability, rent payable account, and That's it. I'm going to, I don't think I was supposed to check this. So I'm going to process my open items. I'm going to hit enter again, and I'm going to post my rent. So rent was posted. Payable account should now turn green. If I go back and execute my report again, yes, the payable account turns green and 0 both, and the expense account sits with a ledger balance. Now see what happens when we do the next run on the 1st of September 2013. For the next run, we will again choose, we'll go back to, yes, we want to exit, I'm sorry. Yeah, we will exit this one, and we will go to F.14, which is this one. To execute our recurring entry. And we'll do the, basically we'll keep doing the same thing again and again. So MR88, fiscal year 2013, and that's it. Settlement period once again 31st of July to the 30th of June. That's it. We just need to put settlement period, fiscal and company code and execute this one. Session has been created. /n SM35. I need to process this session. So I'll say process. Display errors only, process again. Processing of batch input complete, I'll exit. So, and I'm back into easy access. So if I now refresh my GL again, then I will see once again 35 sits in expense account, and payable accounts again sits with an open balance. Now the fun part is it now sits with an open balance on the 31st of August with rent that is due on the 1st of September. Perfect. It's working perfectly fine. This is how it should be working. And a little bit of clarification regarding the document number range 92. The document number range 92 is meant for the batch input. So I just ignore what I said about the fact that we are isolating. And in fact, yeah, that's true. We are isolating the document number range for the recurring entry and the batch input. So I guess that's what I said earlier, if I'm not mistaken, and this is what is true. 92 will not physically show on the report. Physically only 91 will show because X1 at the end of the day has 91. But what we are trying to do is keep the range, the number range for recurring entry document and the batch entry document separate from each other. That's what we are trying to do basically. So the rent is due again. The first journal entry has been taken care of again. Expense sits with an additional balance, and rent is due. So again in easy access I will do an F-07, and now I will pay the rent on the 1st of September 2013. So I'm going to put here the 1st of September 2013, and I'm going to put here a document header text and a clearing text, and I'm going to choose here my bank account, and I'm going to put here 3500. I'm going to put here a value date, which is again the 1st of September 2013, and I'm going to put here bank data text, and I have to clear my rent payable account, so I'm going to choose here rent payable account, which is this one. Process my open items, adjust it fine, hit enter again, and post this entry, and go back to easy access and refresh the ledger line item. So if I refresh, then obviously again it turns green, and the clearing document type each time is this one. I can do this again. If I go to easy access and do F.14, for the same period will never change. MR88 2013, period will never change. Settlement period will never change. 31st July to 30th of June. It's just that the day the rent becomes due will keep changing on the last calendar date of each month, and the day you pay the rent will keep changing to the first calendar date of the next month. As simple as that. I'm going to execute. It's going to run my session SAP F120. I'm going to go to /n SM35 and execute my batch input. I'm going to choose this and say process. Display errors only. This typically means that only stop the process execution if there are errors. Otherwise, process the batch input. That's all it means when I say display errors only. I process it. My batch input is processed. I exit my batch input. I'm back on easy access. I refresh my ledger line item report. And once again, on the 30th of September, my rent is due, which I'm going to pay on the 1st of October. Let's pay that. Again, F-07 on the 1st of October. Document header text, clearing text. Account chosen here would be the bank account. I know I'm paying 3,500 rent on the 1st of October. Bank data text, and I want to clear my rent payable account. So I will choose here my rent payable account, which is this one. I will go to process open items, hit enter, and post this one. And go back to easy access and go back to my ledger line item report and refresh it. So I'm done. It's green again. So overall I have paid 10,500. So yes, I've exactly paid 10,500 rent. So that makes sense, kind of. And good news is that it brings us to the end of this lecture. We will now discuss dunning, cash journal, and then we will discuss how to do financial reports, and then how to close our financial year, carry forward our balances, how to close the financial year, and how to close, if you just don't want to post a year, but close a year, but you want to close only a period. So we will discuss